Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
Foundations.
Even if you were the most righteous person that lived and you thought you did a pretty good job, by the time Jesus has finished the Sermon on the Mount, you knew you were wretched, decrepit and without hope, because everything was pointing to the condition of the person's heart.
Foundations. Understanding the Jewish foundations of our Christian faith. With Robbo Robinson and Mandy Warby.
In previous episodes of Foundations, we've talked about the issue of the law and whether or not it's important for Christians to keep the law. And it certainly is a topic that can get Christians fairly rolled up, because some people lean very heavily towards keeping the law. Others say, oh, no, we're all under grace and it's not important. But that's something that we're going to discuss over the next couple of episodes of Foundations.
Yeah, specifically the Ten Commandments, because, and I do get why people get kind of immediately rolled up with, oh, you've gone under the law, you've lost your salvation. We have to remember that when God gave the law is holy. Okay, everything that God gave to the people of Israel and his people now, all of us around the world, he's given us a set of standards, and he gave the law, it's holy, and it reveals to us that we don't cut the mustard at all. Yep. So the law is actually very holy, and so we shouldn't denigrate it. But it would be really good, I think, to focus on the encounter. Remember, Jesus had an encounter with the rich young ruler?
Yep.
My heart always breaks for this young man whenever I read this. It's kind of really sad. So maybe we'll start off with that. We'll have a look at that.
Yeah, well, this is found in Luke 18. From verse 18, it says, "A ruler questioned Jesus, saying, 'Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?' And Jesus said to him, 'Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments: don't commit adultery, don't murder, don't steal, don't bear false witness, honour your father and mother.' And the ruler said, 'All these things I've kept from my youth.' When Jesus heard this, he said to him, 'One thing you still lack. Sell all that you possess and distribute it to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven, and come follow me.' But when he, the ruler, heard these things, he became very sad, for he was extremely rich." I kind of imagine Jesus being really sad at that as well. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, when you go through the Sermon on the Mount, a lot of Christians like to really focus on the Sermon on the Mount because it's so nice. Blessed are, blessed are, blessed are. But if you read through that, that's really hard yakka.
Oh, yeah.
He tightened the law up so much that even if you were the most righteous person that lived and you thought you did a pretty good job, by the time Jesus has finished the Sermon on the Mount, you knew you were wretched, decrepit and without hope.
Well, that's right.
Because everything was pointing to the condition of a person's heart. It's not just what you did, it's what you were thinking about.
That's right, exactly.
So I think about this young man, and his standing. Now, it says that he was a rich young ruler. Now, one of the misconceptions in Judaism, back then especially, was that if you were wealthy, then you had God's favour. If you were healthy, you had God's favour. If you were poor and you were sick and all the rest of it, you'd obviously done something and God was not happy with you. So this guy, for all intents and purposes, in the eyes of society, was under the favour of God. Now, because he was a rich young ruler, it actually means, well, the word itself, the Greek word for ruler is archon, and it actually means chief ruler or a magistrate. So this young guy was probably held in high esteem. He probably had a great deal of religious standing. He may have had legal standing, like a magistrate, something like that. So he would have been probably of the Pharisees and the scribes, an expert in the law. As I said, wealthy, so he had prestige.
Social standing as well.
Lots of social standing. I mean, this guy was probably loved by everybody, young, so eligible and all of that as well to the young maids around. So he was pretty hot stuff. And yet he obviously, from this, really does have a desire to know and seek after the things of God. So he's genuine.
That's
he's really
right.
genuine.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of his position. And then Jesus gives him a questioning of where he's really at.
But I think the interesting thing is that obviously Jesus highlights a few of the commandments. So, we talk about the 10 commandments. Well, Jesus only, in this list, he lists 5. He talks about adultery, murder, theft, bearing false witness and honouring your parents. But he left 5 out, so he only even focused on half of the 10 Commandments as he was talking to this young man.
Actually, that's very interesting because this rich young ruler, and again, because the law was so prominent and so holy and highly esteemed, and he obviously hadn't been at the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus said, you're not allowed to commit adultery. I'm telling you, if you think it, if you just look with lust and you think about it, you're done. Okay, you're not allowed to murder, but I tell you that if you hate somebody, you're guilty of the action.
Yeah.
And so he obviously wasn't there for that message. And so for all intents and purposes, this is a young guy who has been raised probably in the synagogue. He was probably a disciple of a rabbi and was trained in the law, and he probably became expert in also the civil services as well, gained lots of money, who knows what he'd inherited. And for all intents and purposes, everybody's looking at this guy like he's arrived. And because he's an expert in the law, who was going to question him? So Jesus says, yeah, okay, well, do you honour your mother and father? Yep, I do that. So you're not allowed to steal. I've never stolen a thing in my life. Never downloaded any music illegally on the internet. Never copied a DVD that I didn't have the right to. Never done anything like that. Never even nicked a packet of chewy from the local milk bar. Okay, well, you're not allowed to commit adultery. No, I've never touched a woman. Never in my life. I'm pure. I'm pure in all of that. And Jesus kind of digs the knife in because here he is saying, I'm a law keeper. I'm a law keeper. Yeah. So what else do I have to do? First of all, that tells you this guy's got something missing on the inside. He's actually doing all of the physical deeds. He's maintaining this observance on the outside. He's doing everything right, and God's approving of him because he's wealthy, he's healthy, he's got standing, he has a reputation. And he looks fantastic. Something is hollow there on the inside. And Jesus says, done great. There's just one thing. It's just one thing. I want you to take all the stuff that you've got, I want you to sell it, and I want you to give it to the poor. And then, free of all that encumbrance, come and follow me. It's going to be great. And this young guy's rocked to the core. Give away all the blessing that God's given me? Isn't that what makes me so favoured? You want me to give all of that away? And he goes away absolutely heartbroken because all of that stuff is so important to him. Yeah. And without realising it, Jesus actually puts a torch, a spotlight on something very deep-seated in his heart. Something that he didn't know was there because he thought he was doing everything right. There was this massive, great big issue that Jesus puts the spotlight on.
So it's a very interesting perspective that this young ruler brings to us. And in the next program, we're going to continue exploring his story and focus on the other 5 commandments that Jesus didn't mention in this conversation with the rich young ruler. That's next time on Foundations.
This has been Foundations, a look at the Jewish foundations of our Christian faith. For study notes, resources and more, see vision.org.au/foundations.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.